From here we spend a lot of time talking about the most important geopolitical conflicts that are of a very, very varied nature, both warlike and commercial. And in the latter case, we cannot fail to mention the trade war over microchips, the course of which has already involved the United States, China and even a Dutch company. So imagine how many countries could end up getting involved in its consequences. You already know that around here we are very formal, so we started with the introductions. And if China and the United States do not need to introduce ASML, yes, it is a Dutch company that manufactures machines for the production of chips. In another episode we already talked about TSMC, a company based in Taiwan that leads the world in the production of chips. Well, both TSMC and any other company that is dedicated to the same thing to produce the chips need special machines that ASML manufactures precisely. And so that you realize how tremendously strategic and how absolutely impressive the machines in question are, let's go with some numbers. Well, this is a colossal lettering equipment that is the size of a bus, is manufactured using around 100,000 different components, weighs close to of 200 tons and its price is around $150–200 million per machine. And if the numbers above haven't impressed you enough, I still have to mention that just shipping all the parts for just one of these machines requires 40 containers, 3 cargo planes, and 20 trucks. Mother of beautiful love, what a work of divine creation, dear Lou. And this, why exactly is it so complicated to transport? Easy, simple and for the whole family, because what you have to transport, my dear, are not milk cans, but machines that for a little while allow you to record circuit patterns on the surface of thin sheets or sheets of semiconductor materials. Process that, by the way, results in the creation of chips. Ready, set, now let's go with a little bit of theory to convey to you which, in addition to all this, I will have to transform myself from a political scientist or geopolitical scientist into a teacher of I don't really know what subject, since what I have to explain to you is the difference between ultraviolet lithography extreme and deep ultraviolet lithography. Both things refer to the processes used by the equipment for the production of chips. Now it is worth the redundancy to produce those same chips, and we start with the first, extreme ultraviolet lithography or EUV for its acronym in English. This is the process used by the most advanced equipment and which allows the creation of the powerful microchips that are later used in the most modern and powerful technological equipment. We are talking about patterns finer than a human hair in billions of transistors, and most importantly, these state-of-the-art machines are only produced by one company in the world. You probably guessed it, the Dutch company ASML. And this is where we find the first geopolitical problem, since the electronic equipment used in these next-generation machines has intellectual property. The United States can prohibit ASML from selling the machines in question, for example, to China, and of course it has. In other words, see if the commercial bar geopolitical world is exciting or not. Because of the United States, a Dutch company cannot sell its lithography machines with EUV technology to China. But don't worry, all is not lost for the country led by Xi Jinping, and that is that there is another chip manufacturing process. Do you remember that there were two? Well, this time we are talking about deep ultraviolet lithography, from EUV for its acronym in English. This process, that is, deep ultraviolet lithography, is less advanced than extreme ultraviolet lithography, and this as a main consequence basically has the capacity of data that can be stored in the resulting chips, and I'm going to explain myself. The main reason for this is basically hidden in the wavelength that is used to produce chips in both cases, that is, the wavelength in the case of extreme ultraviolet lithography, that is, the most advanced technology, is 10 times shorter than in the case of deep ultraviolet lithography, somewhat less advanced than the previous one. And of course, speaking in simple terms, if the wave is 10 times smaller, what this allows is basically to record 10 times more data in the same surface area. Come on. I could have saved you all the pantomime by simply telling you that the main difference between the two technologies is the fact that the most advanced of them, that is, the one used by the Dutch company ASML, allows for the production of much more powerful and efficient chips. And now, so that you understand it completely, let's go with practical examples, and that is that in our day-to-day technological needs we mainly use devices with chips manufactured using this second, somewhat less advanced technology, that is, deep ultraviolet lithography. Toasters, refrigerators, electronic equipment found in vehicles, while the second technology, extreme ultraviolet lithography, is mainly used to produce chips for more sophisticated appliances. A very clear example of this would be, for example, the iPhone 13. Of course, both technologies do not differ only and solely by the sophistication of the chips produced using them, but also have two other very important differences. Namely, first of all, while ASML is the only company in the world that makes machines using this most advanced technology, i.e. extreme UV lithography, it does not boast this heritage when it comes to deep UV lithography, in which case there are more companies that manufacture the machines that use it, such as Nikon, Canon or Tokyo Electro. And also, in the case of this second technology, the United States lacks influence at the intellectual property level to prohibit ASML from selling those machines to China. But of course, as we well know, the United States knows everything, so since they cannot prohibit the company from selling those slightly less advanced technology machines to China, what they are trying to do is basically pressure the Irish government to stop to sell them. In the Netherlands, however, they do not seem too willing to accede to such demands, and in this sense the country's Minister of Foreign Trade said that this president would make his own decisions in relation to the sale of machines produced by ASML to China, and I quote literally, "It is important that we defend our own interests not only in terms of national security, but also in terms of our economic interests." Wow, what a sovereignty! It has suddenly come out from where no one expected it. Anyone would say that this same policy is also applied in the case of sending aid to Ukraine. But in any case, the same minister also declared that the United States definitely does not. You should expect the Netherlands to join in its policy of restricting exports to China. Of course, the intentions of the United States do not catch that. Nobody, and it is that with its Made in China 2025 plan, China basically aspires to stop being the factory of cheap products in the world to start producing goods of much greater value, thus becoming a world leader in technology, and in this sense what its intention is to create a chip production industry to reduce its dependence on the outside and on the other to improve its military technology. That is, it intends to create its own chip industry to reduce its dependence on the outside and on the other to improve its capabilities. The military in the United States, as you may have already imagined, want to prevent it by any means possible, and he, however, in this specific case is basically trying to deprive China of the technology that could allow it to do so. But everything indicates that it is really complicated and that perhaps it may surprise you, but it seems that in the Netherlands they count money and that they know a lot, as long as of course it is not about the amount they spend to send aid to Ukraine, but in any case they do not want SML to close the Chinese market even more, since the company in question is already losing a lot of money due to the US veto on selling this most advanced technology to China. Let's face it, things are simpler than Joseph Borrell's argument, that is, since they cannot sell machines with one type of technology, what they do not want is on top of that they cannot sell machines with the other. And if we add to this the fact that in 2021 16% of SML's income came precisely from selling machines with this second type of technology to China, which represents around 3,000 million euros, things become even more crystalline in general terms. And, to make the loop a bit more, we should add that China is also the third largest trading partner of the Netherlands, just behind Belgium and Germany. Let's go all out. It seems to indicate that the European Union in general does not support the US proposal either, since it wants its companies to continue having access to China, and China, for its part, is doing everything possible to prevent other countries from giving in to the demands of the United States. Yes, to the United States. United, as we well know, waging war is going well for him, and in what way? So that he not only tries to pressure Amsterdam to stop selling those chip production machines to China, but also does the same with Japan. Yes, Japan's position at the moment, it seems that it is being more or less the same as that of the Netherlands, and that is that China buys nothing more and nothing less than 20% of all the chip machines that it produces. So of course it does not want to give that up, and it also seems that among the elite of Japan there is a kind of fed up with the constant imposition of the United States to limit China's access to the market. In any case, Chinese companies claim to be very prepared in the face of any US restriction, and I think this is reminiscent of a little about the famous anti-Russian sanctions that are being imposed now, and that is that if you don't want to buy or sell me, don't worry, because another country will surely want it, and even if not just any country but also could be a country allied with the United States, and in this sense together with the Netherlands and Japan to the list of us allies that seem to go through the Statue of Liberty their concerns regarding China, we could surprisingly add South Korea as you hear it, and here the story is also very fast. Simply South Korean companies continue to sell their chip manufacturing machines to China. And finally, to finish this video, we cannot fail to mention the fact that the United States also declares that it mindfully overestimates its ability to influence its allies, to whom more than allies it seems that he considers slaves to be quite short-sighted in his ambitions, and I am going to explain. It turns out that China is for the second consecutive year the country that bought the most machines for the production of chips, with a total increase of 58% compared to the previous year, and reaching an expense of no more and no less than $30 billion. That is to say, if what Washington intends suddenly materialized and China was left without access to those machines, who would suffer very serious consequences would not only be the United States but directly the entire planet. The supply chain of large technology companies that have factories in China, such as Samsung or TSMC itself, would be damaged, which of course would have a very negative impact on large US companies that are not dedicated to producing chips but are dedicated to designing them, as per, for example, AMD or Nvidia. Will be that after the experience with Russia in the United States, they have not yet learned that these types of restrictions are a boomerang that hits harder when it returns.